Hi everyone, this is Athena from Courage Coaching. Thank you so much for stopping by today. In today's video, we are going to talk about shame and how shame differs from guilt and what can we do to actually heal shame. Now, when we are guilty of something, it means that we've done something wrong and we want to fix it. With shame, instead of saying I made a mistake, we feel like we are the mistake. So shame can be really toxic and really unhealthy because we feel that we are defective, that we are a shameful person. Not that we've made a mistake that we can fix, but that we ourselves are bad human beings. Now, shame in many instances can be projected onto us from our parents. So when our parents haven't taken responsibility for their actions, for the pain that they have caused, and they shift that blame onto us, they make us feel ashamed. Now, this is something that we see in a lot of toxic families, and unfortunately, when we've had childhood trauma, toxic shame is something that we then carry. It is something that has been given to us through our parents' inability to be accountable and to be there for us and to allow us to have our feelings and to be responsible for their feelings and to apologize when they haven't done something right or when they've been angry in a moment when they shouldn't have. If our parent wasn't able to do that, then we will feel ashamed. We will feel like we've done something wrong because our parent may have always punished us when it wasn't necessary. They may have punished us for having, difficult emotions, for not knowing how to deal with those emotions, but we were only children. It wasn't our fault. So it's the parent's responsibility to make sure that their child feels loved, accepted, validated, and safe in their emotions and in their family. Now let's break down shame a little bit more. Now, when we have shame, we don't only think that there's something wrong with us, that we're not good enough, that we are worthless, but we also do things that show how ashamed we actually feel. We don't feel good enough, so we may be perfectionistic. We may be trying to do everything perfectly in order to feel good enough. We may people please in order to feel good enough because deep down we have this toxic shame. Another action we may do is to self-sabotage because we don't inherently feel like we are worthy of good things. So we self-sabotage in order to match this inner feeling of toxic shame that we constantly carry. Other ways of showing that we are ashamed is that we have poor boundaries, that we allow people to hurt us again and again. And also we may just give up on ourselves. There is something known as learned helplessness, which is just us giving up on ourselves because we don't feel that we deserve good things in life. We don't feel that we deserve to have a job, to have a partner, to have friends, because we have such a huge degree of toxic shame that's been passed on to us because of our childhood trauma, that our whole lives have become so much smaller. We have isolated ourselves because of this shame. Isolating yourself when you feel ashamed is the worst thing you can do. You need to actually have connection with other healthy people in order to fight this feeling of shame. Now, what are the two ways that we can get rid of this feeling of shame, that we can heal this feeling of shame? Now, one example is when you've been shamed by somebody else or when something's happened to you and you feel ashamed. So when we've been shamed by somebody else, and this person is usually a parent, we need to think about the actions that that parent did and how those actions affected us. And should we actually feel ashamed, or is our parent the one that needs to feel ashamed? So sometimes we need to put the blame where it belongs in order to rid ourselves of this feeling of shame. So what I'm saying here is that survivors of trauma frequently blame themselves for things that were beyond their control. So they may blame themselves that their parents got a divorce. They may blame themselves that their brother died. They may blame themselves when they were raped by saying, well, maybe I shouldn't have worn that dress, or maybe I shouldn't have gone out that late at night. But the shame does not belong to them in those moments. The shame belongs to the other person. The other person that didn't take any accountability for the mistakes that they made, for the harm that they caused. When somebody else does not take accountability for the bad thing that they have done, we then internalize that as shame. So the second way that we deal with shame is when we check in with ourselves and we realize, oh, I've actually done something wrong. When you have actually done something wrong, when you've hurt someone, then you need to take responsibility for your actions. You need to look at yourself and think, what did I do to hurt that person? What can I do to repair? What can I do to fix this? It is very important to learn from our mistakes, because when we learn from our mistakes and we apologize to somebody and we say to them, I'm so sorry for the things that I did to hurt you. What can I do to make it better? This already makes that person feel better. We take responsibility for the things that we have done to have hurt the other person. We don't allow the shame to be put on the other person. We put it where it belongs, which is with our actions that may have caused that hurt. So for instance, a parent who has neglected their child, abused their child, who didn't cope well being a parent, and that child felt that their needs weren't met, that they weren't loved enough, that their emotions didn't matter. The correct way for that parent to help their child in the present moment is to actually be accountable and say, I'm so sorry that I wasn't as good a mother as I wished I'd been. How can I make this better? How can I help you feel more loved and more validated? Please tell me and I will do that. That is a way of fixing shame. The shame that a parent may feel towards their child for not doing the right thing. If the parent doesn't take accountability and calls the child a difficult child, saying you were too difficult and you were too fussy and everything I did was the best I could and it's not my fault, then the parent's not really taking responsibility. The parent is placing that shame onto the child. It's making the child feel bad about itself, about its personality. And that is why so many survivors of trauma and abuse feel this intense toxic shame and carry it with them their whole life and never feel good enough, because the parent did not take responsibility for the mistakes that they made. So just to summarize, there are two ways to heal your shame. If you've been a victim of a rape, if you have survived childhood trauma, you have to remember that the shame is not yours to carry, that it belongs to the perpetrator of that abuse, of that rape, of that trauma. And secondly, if you really genuinely feel that you have done something to hurt somebody, that you could have done better, that your actions made somebody else feel bad about themselves, then the right thing to do is to be accountable and to try and repair and to try and fix the hurt that you have caused. This is extremely important. If you don't do this, then you will not be able to repair the relationship. And it may be that you have done certain things that were shameful that you aren't able to fix, because the person that you want to fix this relationship with no longer wants you in their life. And that is just a natural consequence of not dealing with your own questionable, hurtful actions and not dealing with your own shame. Lastly, I just wanted to say that it's important to remind ourselves that shame is very much healed by connection. The more we isolate with our shame, the more we keep it hidden, the worse we feel. If we don't share it with others, if we don't apologize to others, if we don't tell them about the things that we wished we'd done differently, we don't speak about the regrets we have, we are not going to shine light onto it. We are not going to share it with somebody and feel better. It is important, especially when we've done something shameful, to connect to others, to talk about the fact that we are unhappy about our shameful actions and that we want to make amends, that we want to make things better, that we will do anything that is required to make it better. So do not isolate when you have shame. Find ways to connect with people, even if it means that you have to apologize, even if it means that you have to be accountable for something that you really, really are ashamed of, that you really, really don't want to share. But that is the only way forward. And even if that person doesn't respond in the way that you want, then so be it. If you've done something shameful, you have to deal with the consequences. But make sure you're accountable, because it will help you feel better that you at least had the strength to do that, rather than hiding and keeping that hidden away, which also means that you keep carrying that shame. And that is what you don't want to have. Keeping that bottled up is not healthy for you. And you're just going to live a life of constantly hiding, of lying to yourself, of avoiding things, and of blaming others, which is toxic behavior. It is not healthy. Now that is the end of the video, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. And if you found this video useful, then please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below the video if you would like to share your experience. Thank you so much. Take care, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.